Saif,
Good morning.
I can't hear you. That's why we have troubleshooting in the beginning.
Okay.
Can you? Yes. Now the microphone is off.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay.
Oh, wait. There must be something is bad. Can you hold on 1 second? And I will try to solve this. Wait. Let's see. Let's see. Hmm.
I'm also trying at my end. I think
Yes,
it's working.
I can hear you.
Excellent.
There you go. Hello again.
Was this is my morning voice. So
Oh, okay. That's fine. It sounds just like a very deep voice. It's fine.
I I usually do.
What time is it? It's around 10?
No, it's I'm in California, so I'm on the Pacific. It's to be honest, it's 7:30. It's not bad, but because I
Oh,
still work on, so I split my day. A good part of it is on Dubai time zone, so I stay late in the night.
oh, okay. Okay, okay. Makes sense. Also, I got the sense that you kind of travel a bit for work.
I used to travel a lot for work.
Oof.
I think I'm happier now that the amount of travel I do and the duration of travel is more controlled. So
Oh,
I'm happier, compared to a few years ago. I I used to be a stranger, so my kids always miss me. Now
oh,
now it's better.
oh, well, yeah. In the beginning of a business and in general, in the beginning of a career, there's a little bit of a sacrifice. I understand,
Absolutely, absolutely.
especially when
Uh,
you're a
And,
parent.
and then I think also we all as a human, when maybe you are younger and at the beginning of your career, your focus is more on the career and less on the self and the family and the partner. So um,
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but we all realize after some time that jobs comes and go, career can take a bit longer.
yeah, yeah. It's true. I guess it also depends. For me, I'm always in this kind of thought, right? Because for me, it has always been something like, okay, if something is going to touch my relationship. I don't have kids, right? But I have a husband. And so if something is going to even ruin a little bit my relationship, it's not worth it. All right. So that's the way I kind of jumped into this journey, being an entrepreneur. And then I found out that it was a little bit rigid. Like, you have to find the sweet spot. And so basically, this is what inspired this podcast that you're seeing, because I'm trying to find that balance between grit and wanting it and, realizing what you want, achieving what you want, but at the same time, without sacrificing well being and relationship and basically being happy. I consider myself lucky because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs and founders, and I have their stories, I have their experience, and many of them they say, I'm wealthy, I'm okay, I'm successful, yet I'm not happy, right? And so I'm able to kind of see in the future and see, oh, okay, maybe that's when it went wrong.
Wow, what a
Yeah,
great start! I think,
it
um,
is.
yeah, this is a very important topic, and as many entrepreneurs, many, not all, but transition from being an employee into a business owner. Um, and there is a lot of focus on the positivity, like, oh, like, I'm no longer a 9 to 5. I own my business. I don't have a boss. And there is a lot of focus on that. And I think that there is a less exposure, focus, content. It's about like, okay, now we all know that entrepreneurship has those perks, but let's talk about the other side, which is, as you said, like how do you set those boundaries? How do you set up time? How do you set up even a routine? Uh, just like you, I talk a lot with other entrepreneurs. And when we get deeper into how do you sleep, how do you eat, uh, and then you discover that there is so much focus on I'm not 9 to 5, I'm my own boss, I'm going, to solve world hunger, but yet you're not sleeping well, you're not spending enough time with your partner. So it's I believe what you're trying to do is to find that balance, or at least talk about it. I mean, in
Yes.
America, I've recently moved to America, but there is more and more focus on that message that there is no work-life balance, and you see it's even a joke or a meme, and you see this funny story between the American CEO and European CEO, and it's like I can't get enough of this joke that Americans they don't know what's life. And the last one I saw is this, like, oh, is it life when we go back and sleep? Um, well, you see now that there is a focus on a younger generation, or in relative terms, for the sake of making this a funny joke, it's between Europe and the US, where many people focus so much into happiness that, oh, I don't like you, I don't like this job, I don't like the energy in the place, I'm going to change job, I'm going to pack and go work uh, as a digital nomad and sit in Bali because the weather's, it's like, I don't think this is right. Like, you put your self-care and happiness as like the number one priority, and you could sit without having a job or continue to travel for a long time until you find this happy space. So
Yeah.
again, this is why this topic is important. There has to be a
Yes.
balance between the two. Like,
Yes, and the thing is to find it. And I'm sorry because we jumped right in it. I jumped right in it because I really look forward to this kind of conversations. I didn't
I
really
like
have
that.
the chance to present you, to welcome you. So just to say a few things. We'll get. I can't wait to get back to the conversation. But just want to say that I'm so happy that you're here, that you took a little time to talk with me. I invited you to this podcast because when we connected on LinkedIn, I saw, the magic word in your LinkedIn, which was protecting founders from burnout. And this is near and dear to my heart because working as a therapist, basically, for entrepreneurs and founders, you can imagine how many times, right? I see burnout, and unfortunately, I see it when it's already usually full blown, right? It's already done, and you have to recuperate and recharge from that. And again, the podcast. It was born for this reason, to try and find, to talk to as many entrepreneurs as possible and founders, and see what they do, do they find, if they find that balance that we were talking about. And again, when I saw your LinkedIn, I saw that word preventing burnout, and I saw that you even, I don't know if you are building it or if you build it, you're going to tell me, a service around it called, your t-shirt said, startup insurance, which is great. It's a great idea. And I want to know about this. But first, I like to know a little bit about your background, your story, and what brought you to create, startup.
Oh, thank you. Okay, it's good we have time.
Yes. Oh, okay. It's gonna be a long one. Love it.
um, I'll give you a bit of background in my story,
Yes.
and then try to link that with what I'm doing right now, which might be relevant for whoever will be watching or listening to the podcast.
Okay.
Small family, we traveled a lot of focus on education and career. I have only one sister, very close to my parents. I studied medicine, I became a physician. I was trained as a surgeon. Again, going into this path of crystal clear career, I know what I'm doing. Um, and then I shifted to work on health policy. And I think in Spain, in Europe, in many parts of the world, now more than ever, some practicing physicians become part of population health or policy work. And at that point of time, I was exposed to this, I'll call it this idea of we're doing greater good. Because as a doctor, you have a patient, like you as a therapist, you have a patient, you do great for that one-to-one interaction. But when you get to write a policy that impacted hundreds or thousands or even millions of people, especially in public health, it has a different feeling. And I felt myself, I like it. I also got to work with the smarter people, not only physicians and therapists, but individuals who understand statistics, epidemiology, and all of that. So that's how I transitioned from being a practicing physician or a healthcare provider to a health policymaker. And at that point of time, we were looking at mandatory health insurance as one of the ways to change access to healthcare. So even my introduction to insurance was more from the greater good, not the typical concepts of insurance. So then I transitioned completely to become at the intersection of healthcare and finance, because once you have this hat, um, they call it the big white hat. Okay, now you're thinking about how much the government is spending on healthcare and what we want to achieve. So you start to unlocking some new knowledge that, okay, this is the budget we have. Are we going to spend it on primary healthcare, or we will build new schools with um, like a new clinic system? So obviously you will choose, no, we need more primary healthcare. We know uh, bringing healthcare to school is important, but let's look at the budget. Or should we latest bring in this latest technology for cancer, or we built a secondary hospital? So all of that. And then with that change and transition, I get exposed to corporate America, and I started working now in the hardcore health insurance. Um, and I learned as I go. I mean, I didn't understand how insurance worked, and especially the concept of health insurance, or more so, they call it managed care, is an American concept. It started here in the US. It's quite different than what we have in the Middle East or in Europe. And that was a career path. So started not at the entry point. I came at a quite, I'd say, mid-management level and made it up to a CEO in a health insurance company. And I was blessed to work in different markets. So when we started this conversation, we talked about traveling. But part of my job was to work with this large American company, United Health Group. It's one of the largest, maybe, health insurer or healthcare companies in the world. And I worked as a vertical or divisional CEO, and I got to work in India, and I got to work in Asia Pac. I got to work, of course, in my region in the Middle East, and then I had a global role, and that have even enriched my, I would call it, exposure to healthcare, because when you go to a new country, you need to understand how healthcare is delivered first, and then you can suggest the programs. And I'm always fascinated about traveling and meeting new people and getting to um, um, get introduced to new cultures. And now, if you want to do something in healthcare in a new country, you really need to get to a level that you know what's happening with you. You can't just sit in your office and do slides. So
Yeah.
all of that, I would say, until very recent time in my age, was exactly what I thought is my calling. Like, I'm doing a great job. However, that have taken me from my family, from my friends, and I was very passionate about my career and my career progress. And then I got exposed to Silicon Valley. Like, I imagine until 2016, 2017, I didn't know what Silicon Valley, like, because I was a corporate guy, wearing expensive suits, traveling business class. That's what I but even my friends were from the corporate world. We
Mm.
didn't meet startup entrepreneurs. And at that point of time, there was a no boom in the startup ecosystem. I think few years before that, it was the fintech world, and at 2017, it started to be the insurtech. Insurtech was the new trend.
Mm.
So getting more into now the transition from being a corporate employee into an entrepreneur, I decided to create something like Silicon Valley. Foolishly, I said, okay, I have to have an incubator and accelerator. And I love the energy of entrepreneurs. I wanted to be as close as possible to entrepreneurs without being an entrepreneur myself. So with a good friend of mine, with the support of the government, we created an incubator. We started inviting entrepreneurs, and you would know that because you meet with entrepreneurs, and we would see multiple uh, pitch or presentations or ideas a day, and then we do those the weekends pitches or the events where we even see more entrepreneurs and more ideas. And I was really enjoying that I'd say um, really intense dose of entrepreneurship coming my way. Like sometimes you would sit and see 20, 30 presentations of these great ideas. And we started investing. We had a portfolio of 40 companies, and I was still a corporate guy. So I'd say 9 to 5, and then I'll spend some time talking to those entrepreneurs and trying to relate to their language, because even I didn't understand their language. You'd appreciate
Wow.
like when I meet with a startup founder, I'll be in a suit and sitting in my office, and we have only 30 minutes, and almost trying to run this business or this conversation as you are running a corporate business, as you are like meeting with a vendor or meeting with a client. And
Wow.
you see those guys have figured it out. Like the first 5 minutes, they know exactly what to say. They answer all of your questions. But then when you go deeper, it might not be like everyone starts with solving hunger, or they want to disrupt this billion of dollars market. And at the beginning I didn't say like, why they say that? I just want to know you, or I want to know what you do. But here at that point of time where I get my first startup ideas, like I love insurance, I love the energy in the entrepreneurship. I don't see myself as an investor because my personality is a doer. I like when you tell me about what you're doing, I want to jump in and start working with you. So then I decided to start my own company. And a shout out to all the young entrepreneurs who joined me at that point of time. Was like, okay, let's disrupt the same energy you have, this multi-billion-dollar market. The average age of a functioning company in my industry is hundreds of years. So, okay, with all of your energy, with the knowledge I have in the insurance world, why don't we try to do an insurtech? And I left the incubator, left my job, started focusing on building my first startup. And what started as an idea that needs a problem, uh, it became eventually a solution for a big problem. So in Dubai, insurance is mandatory. Everyone has to buy health insurance. And the experience in buying health insurance is still, I'd say, maybe 40, 50 years old. So you'll have
Oh,
to
wow.
apply, you fill in forms. I don't know if it's different in Spain, but at that point of time, I had this great exposure to ideas in different markets, like how do you order food, how do you customize your cake, how do you get a taxi, and then you can choose if you want conversation with the driver. I was like, why can't we do the same in health insurance? So we built the concept, or brought the concept of built your own health insurance, super transparent, using technology. You can say, okay, I want this insurance with mental health, no mental health. I want it with primary care first. I want it with secondary, and try to push this knowledge to people so you understand. And then the price is in front of your eyes. So if you decide like, well, I want mental health, and you see how much it would cost you, you could say, oh no, you know what, I'm doing well. Or it could be the complete opposite. Like you go, oh, I didn't know that health insurance with mental health, with dental, with vision cost only that much. It's like a couple of maybe dollars extra here and there. So that was um صحتك. صحتك is Arabic for your health. Again, starts with an S, but different. And I'm happy personally to go back in t-shirts. So took the built up a team. We wanted to build a culture, and the culture was this is a health insurance, but modern age. And to reflect it, we were based in a warehouse. And if you compare like this picture, imagine that an insurance company based in a warehouse, people wearing branded T-shirt, more like a Google marketplace compared to the typical insurance companies that very suit, leather seats, big corporate office, uh,
Yeah.
because it's financial, almost like banking. And God's blessing, it worked. We grew by 5x year on year. I've raised funding. We became a mainstream player. So we were not only a startup, but actually there were hundreds of thousands that have our insurance. And we get good feedback, bad feedback. So what we try to do is to solve the issue of how do you buy insurance? And it worked. It takes you maximum a minute. It could be seconds for you to get a health insurance and then activate it, and it works. Um, and I also focused on the segment, and there was a lot of learning, a lot of trials and errors in this journey. Now I'll continue to talk about the journey because it's relevant. Then we get, so as I said, we raised funding. I did a lot of mergers and acquisition. I wanted to grow the startup, and I didn't want to wait for it to grow organically. So, startup founders, they break walls and they build things, and I did that. I bought legacy businesses, I bought technology businesses, I've merged multiple entities together, and there was a lot of focus on our culture. One of the I'd say greatest moments for us when LinkedIn recognized our business as one of the best places to work in the UAE. And that was not one of the best startups to work, it's one of the best places to work. Because when I talked to the people at LinkedIn, they said we've seen a lot is searching your company, a lot of people is applying once you put a job, because it seems that this culture was celebrated, and many of the individuals who work in the healthcare system or the insurance wanted to join this movement. Now, long story short, uh, we have grown to a level that it made more sense for the company to be sold, or as startup founders mentioned, it's exit. And
Yeah.
obviously I wasn't prepared back to, I wish I've met you at that point of time. I had a void in my life, like, okay, now I've built this company. I work maybe 18 hours a day. My wife was my co-founder, so we live in the company, we talk about the company, we breathe the company, we eat and talk about business. And then we had this opportunity with the pressure coming from investors that, okay, this is a great deal, we will chop the business and sell it into pieces. And uh, I had about a year of depression, because I have to show up and say that we've made it, we have an exit, but deep inside I was fighting um, a deep feeling of I'm burned out. I don't want to sell it. I want, like, I don't want to sell it this way. I want to sell, like, I wanted to grow it more. Um, but at the same time, you have to show to everyone around you that you're on top of what you're doing, and this is great. And what made it even worse, our network, our industry was celebrating that. Okay, a local company is growing, it's in demand, it's a good brand, it has an opportunity to be sold, and exit is linked to celebration. And and what I'd say have increased that suffering is people will call you and say, oh, congratulations, you're selling your business. And I was like, oh yeah, oh, thank you. Or friends would say, oh, you should throw a party. um,
Wow.
and I continued through this journey, but I felt that many of my decisions were the direct result of being burned out. I didn't know what's a burnout. Obviously, I had to read about it and understand what's a burnout. So I was like, oh, okay, I could have made more money, or I could have negotiated a better deal for my employees, or I could have, but because I was so tired from this whole pressure of I have to show you that I'm celebrating, but deep inside, I'm sad. And because of that, it's like, let's just get with it. Like, it's okay. Where do I sign? Let's do this. It's okay. Um, and and I felt that the same feeling, the mood swing, this combination of the lack of sleep, the combination of being anxious, the stress, uh, so much worrying about what people would say, what should I put on LinkedIn, uh, or like smiling because I'm doing an interview. I compare that same feeling, Danny, with other decisions I've made during the startup journey. I was like, oh, now I remember why I signed this bad deal. Because I signed this bad deal because I had the same feeling. It was a moment where I didn't sleep enough. My team was saying, "Oh, this is a great deal. This is a great deal," and it wasn't a great deal. It was a bad deal. But at that point of time, as a startup founder, you make all decisions. Like, even if
Yeah.
you have an advisory board, you have number two and number three, but there is so much pressure on you to make decisions. Sometimes um, I think we celebrate it like, oh, I'm the founder. I own my business. I can decide to close it now. I can decide to price the service cheaper. But I think this consistent pressure that you have to make decisions, whether you have enough information or not, eventually could end to burnout, and you could end to um, reaching to a level where you make bad decisions. And this is not even talking about your relationship with your partner, with your friends, with your family. So to close this chapter and to tell you the idea of startup, in my transition being out of from being a startup founder into a retired startup founder, I spent some time thinking what I want to do next. And I
Mm.
felt startup insurance, where it focuses on the star, and the star is the founder, and it brings the protection that historically we have in the insurance business. I mean, if you think about insurance, the core concept of insurance that we protect you from risks that you are not prepared to.
Right.
And to translate the simple language to a founder, they don't think about insurance this way. They think about insurance like, I don't want to pay for insurance. I don't have money to buy insurance. I don't like insurance. I don't understand insurance. Because the transaction or their previous transaction with insurance, like you are buying a policy for your car because you have to, or you are buying a renter insurance or a home insurance because you have to. But if we go back, in my understanding to insurance, insurance is protection. And I think a lot of what happened to startup founders, because you have to always show that you are on top of whatever you are doing, whether it's hiring a person or getting into a deal. So I found my passion or my new calling in this area at the intersection between protection and insurance and startup founders. Like, I didn't start a new idea or a new company, and I didn't go back to work in the insurance industry as we know it. I said, you know what, insurance, you're doing great. I like you. I love you. I've made my career. I've built up, my 20 years I work in insurance. Even my startup was in the insurance business. And I love the energy that entrepreneurs have. But I recall that I was burned out when I started talking to other founders, almost like a therapist. They all have the same thing, it's just they don't talk about it.
Yes.
So, back to the point we've started the conversation. What if we can protect the founders from burnout? So, we don't come after burnout. Let's try to protect the founder by identifying key points that tells me where is your threshold, because you and I are different. You most probably way before you burn out that you're going to burn out. But maybe for me, I don't know. But when you start asking, it's like, how many hours are you sleeping? Are you eating well? When was the last time you you enjoyed doing a hobby? Did you talk to your mom? Did you go out for a walk? And when the answer is no, 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 you know the person in the front of you on the other side of the camera, he is heading like straight, maybe
Yes.
full speed into burnout.
Yes.
And we're different. There are individuals who can pull their things together, and even if they're burnout, still make the right decisions. But if they do, in my personal opinion, they might even get into a bigger issue, like they will collapse rather than they will burn out. Like they will reach to a level of switching off, leaving their job, or not answering their investors. So a lot of what we do in this model, which is experimental, started a few months ago, and I'll be happy to tell you about it, that we take care of the founder or the founders, if there are multiple founders, physical, mental, and financial health and well-being. So that's what we do. This is the anchor. This is my mission. Now, one of the way we do it in the concierge, there is a team of like-minded individuals who have experience working with founders. So the only difference is consider it, it's like a therapy, it's a wellness, it's a coaching, it's a financial planner, but the core of the individuals who deliver the service, they have to either um, like are entrepreneurs or founders or even failed founders, but they understand the journey of entrepreneur. So they can relate, like, yeah, an entrepreneur is slightly different than a CEO of a company or a small, like a baker or a small business owner. So that's I'd say the core of what we do is build this relationship with the founder. And then as we build this relationship with the founder, the some of us, the few of us who understand insurance, we increase this protection sense by adding insurance products. So we don't sell insurance. We first focus on the concierge health and well-being to protect the founder from burnout. Now, that protection can, in many cases, be linked directly to having a couple of insurance products like life insurance, a saving plan, or in terms of if you're running your own business, there are liabilities you have in the business that it might happen. There's no one can stop this liability. But if you have an insurance policy that says if one of your employees had an issue during the working hours, there are insurance products that you buy. And if that happens, you don't have to stress about it. Simply that insurance company will pay what we call it an incident or claim. The same
Mm.
could happen with your health. Now, if you think about the cost of healthcare is high in certain parts and sometimes it's unexpected. What if you or a member of your family needs a very expensive treatment? Now, if you have a health insurance, most probably they will cover that. So you don't need to stress about the cost because you have the right insurance product. Cybersecurity is even a growing risk. Many founders they don't know about it. So instead of going through the headache of losing the customer's data or the bad reputation if this happens, you can have an insurance product that costs you a couple of dollars, maybe a month. But if a problem happens, you don't have to worry about this risk. So, a long story to tell you where I am today. We're about 6 months into this experiment. We were extremely lucky to have this company built in within an accelerator that only does insurance. So
Mm.
I've worked with the global insurance accelerator here in the United States. We built this company, and we had a lot of the insurance part. And what I did out of this uh, environment, which is insurance, I made sure to continue to be connected to startup founders and balance what we're doing. Eventually, in my opinion, uh, building a startup is almost like a sport. In my
Wow.
opinion, it is. It is. I mean, think
Wow.
about it. We are not here. I mean, obviously, we're trying to enhance um, a population or an individual quality of life, whether you help them, build a custom cake or get a taxi quicker or book a ticket, many things we do. Or some of us who work on the B2B, we're trying to improve a system. Now,
Yeah.
again, Danny, it's very important that because many founders they transition from out of the startup ecosystem into it, and there is this almost a stereotype that you have to be a disruptor from the way you dress up, from the way you talk. I mean, many founders they even use very aggressive language, and I don't know who told them that this is the way it should be. But once you get into this journey, if you think about it, it's just like working as a therapist or working as a physician. There are at least like a couple of mainframe rules. Almost like if you and I decide that there is this new trending pickleball,
Mhm.
and let's go play it, right? I mean, we have to follow a rule, and the more we play the game, the more we get exposed to other people who play the game. Most probably, our muscles will know how to play it, and we will play it without even thinking. Now, if you think about startup journey as this sport or exercise, and this I think happened more when you talk to experienced founders, the ones who've done it. I mean, the challenge is raising fund. We all have this challenge. You can't read a book and then you go raise funding. Raising funding is another sport. You have to be
Yes.
prepared for it. You have to wear the sport gear. You have to have the equipment for it, or hiring people, or expanding into a different market. So once we get into this mindset that leaving employment and getting into startup has to follow at least a framework, a basic framework, could be from learning of other founders' mistake. Simply like, okay, you are into this line. Let's talk to founders who had startups in this line. Let's read about them. Let's watch podcasts. I love podcasts. I love at least half of the podcasts are true, genuine. Like people tell you what happened with them. There is the other half that is more focused on I'm not saying fake information, but more like focus on the positive side. And
Yeah.
and I wish we see more and more genuine content that talks about some of the challenges, in addition um, to what we all celebrate. Like it's great, you don't have your own boss, you will eventually have an exit, but it's important that you know for you to have an exit, you might burn out, you might lose your partner, you might lose your friends, and so is there a better way for you to achieve a 5x growth, but instead of in 1 year, maybe in 18 months.
Hmm. Yes, yes. And wow, you thank you, because I love a good story, and you just brought me with you. I feel like I was watching through a window and looking, at all the little steps and the story that you lived it. Wow, it's really amazing. And you said so many things that resonated with me, from being, the founder with your wife, and basically breathing, eating, sleeping, your startup. And yes, it's wow. It really was. It really sounds like a great journey you had. And I love how mm, you speak with authenticity when it comes to your experience. Like you said, there is the glossy part, right? There is the glossy part, but there's also the real part, the part where you actually feel burnout,
Yes.
and you have to go through, you have to keep going. And when you spoke, when you said, you talk about burnout, the first thing that came to mind was, and you spoke about taking decisions, right? You can say that taking decisions is probably the right decision is the main job, right, of a founder, especially of a startup founder. You take the wrong decision, things go down the hill. And the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about startup was, wow, this company really takes, it takes out a huge load of stuff that really taxes the mental bandwidth of a founder. Because, to tell you the truth, everything that it's financial and health related and all you talked about, it requires mental bandwidth, which is already used to, to take decisions, to do your stuff. So I love how you took kind of an old concept, which is insurance, quite boring too, and you really innovated it. Talk about innovation, right? So this is the right kind of innovation. And it is great that it is really linked to your mission. Even before all of that, you were trained as a physician, as a surgeon. So you were there to serve, right? In another way, but you were there to serve. So it's lovely how you were able to kind of combine those things. And I really look forward to see where are you headed with this. You are 6 months, right, in this experiment. Where are you going to, the results? I really look forward to those.
Thank you.
Nice, nice.
Thank
Very,
you.
yeah, it's pretty nice. And
And and there is, and we are learning as we go. Uh,
yes.
we are learning a lot about mental health. We are learning, I'd say maybe sometimes more than our own customers, but we are
Oh,
learning about mental health. We are learning about the science uh, behind mental health, because there's a lot
yes.
of science as well. If you think about the physical health, there is also science about what you eat, what sleep does to you. And then when
Yes.
you apply it, you also learn that even identical twins, like twins who were exactly the same, sometimes the impact of those external factors on them could be different. So, this is why it's important that we identify between Saif and Danny what is our threshold, because you could most probably have way more uh, stamina than me. And
Mm,
what, let's say, I will, if I have, for example, an investor meeting, I might not sleep at night.
mm.
And then the next day I'll be very, I would say, mentally like consumed.
Yeah.
But you might find another person who has no issue with getting into an investor meeting. However, that same person might have a different kind of stressors. Like they don't like to talk to people, or if
Mm-mm.
they have an issue with one of their employees, that maybe you and I find it like fine and it's part of the job. You should always have issues. But those individuals are more, I would say, struggling with this conflict of being a people pleaser. Like they don't want their staff to say about them, oh, he's very rude or he's harsh or he's tough. So then this becomes a very stressful because they need to sit with an employee and be, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand, but they don't understand. So even the stressors are different between ourselves, and the quicker we identify them and we follow again some science, as I said, or I call them the boxes and the framework, and you check those boxes, you say, okay, science says that we all have to sleep 7 to 8 hours, but there are individuals who sleep 5 and they are doing fine. Now, I cannot force them to sleep 7 because the book says you have to sleep 7 hours. They
Yes.
tell me they are fine.
Yes.
Um, when it comes to food, now I found personally is part of this hyper energy I had in my startup days, because I had this beautiful, we're doing an ad for an espresso machine that I have in the office, and whoever walks to my office, especially it comes with our culture, I will make him a coffee or her a coffee and drink with them. So, and I was always like, let's go. And then I discovered, because I had like 7 espressos that day. So
Wow.
so think about it. And I didn't in the beginning. I thought it's all. And then once I cut this coffee, I became normal.
Wow.
But think about it. There are other individuals. If you tell them cut coffee, they can't. They can't. They said, well, it takes me from, let's say, being agitated or always pushy and excited. If I don't have 2 or 3 mugs of coffee, I'll go like completely to be almost sleepy, not focused. Um,
Yes.
so we are building also knowledge and experience of personalizing. It's like, let's try. Maybe if you cut on coffee, let's see what happens. Because we know that coffee has some benefits, but maybe too much coffee will be harmful. And you need to balance it. And this is what you said. It's in those few months, and I look forward for the coming months to come. There's a lot of learning for us as a team, not only for our clients. And then we have our supporters who are saying, we believed in you. We believe in this hypothesis. Let's see if it works, because I need time and data to come and tell you that founders who have, you call it the support mechanism or support system, versus other founders who don't. The first group will do better. I think what's also important, so uh, um, practicing therapists or experts like yourself will do part of the help. But what I found, and I continue to find as we go, more important that when you have peers or a community of like-minded founders who are vulnerable enough and go on in a group session or almost like I'd say a chat and say, well, I didn't sleep yesterday. And I got fascinated. Like many said, "Oh, me too." And the other was like,
Yes.
"Yeah, and then they find that this is almost like a safer place. You can be vulnerable. You can share what's going on, and one will jump and say, I smoke weed, and then I sleep. The other one said, I do melatonin. The third said, oh, you guys, I've tried those. That was horrible. It got me into trouble. And part of the support that comes from non-professionals
Mm-mm.
is equally important. I find sometimes it's even
Absolutely.
more important because you have
Yes.
another person, another founder. Sometimes we get labeled that, yeah, you don't know what I'm going through because you are not a startup founder. But when another founder have this conversation, they immediately click. And part of what we do in building this community is also moderating some of those interactions with like-minded individuals in like-minded, or I'd say in a similar environment. Um, so whether you are like in fashion, you might relate more to another person who also in fashion. But if you are building health tech or a digital health product, and you start talking to another person who is in the same space, you will have a lot in common, and you go like, I'm using this tech and that tech and this system, and this is where we go. So um, a bit of the mission is also to make sure that there is a control environment for startup founders to talk. And the reason I call it control, and to share with you part of the our learning lessons at the beginning, the community feeling became a little bit um, more into like, can you introduce me to your investors, or I'm raising money? Do you? And it was like
Networking.
in my head, I was like, what did I do? So I wanted founders to come and talk about, like, let's say, the personal issues they are struggling with. At the beginning, I couldn't stop them from talking about the normal startup stressors, and they say it's like, oh my god, like, this is what stresses you. One of the experts I work with, he calls it black paint and white paint, and I really like it. He said, as a founder, you have a lot of this black ink. It's like it's the funding, it's the raising capital, it's the growth, it's competing, and then you can't just simply tell them stop all of those and let's talk about sleeping and your relationship with your partner. There has to be, it's like you keep on mixing. The more we can add, um, I'd say, tricks or hacks that reduces the help, maybe it will work. So one of the biggest
Yes.
experiments we have, and I think you would see it, and because you work with founders, like, you can't stop them in many times from talking about their passion and their business. Like, you'd say, let's talk about what you're doing this weekend, and they bring in the conversation, because I believe it happened with me personally. It's you are preoccupied with building this business, so sometimes you can't stop yourself. Um, and I noticed it that even in occasion it gets boring. Like, you can identify a startup founder in a crowd because that person will be only talking about what they're doing, almost like they have no life, they have no friends, no kids to talk about. It keeps on. It's like, I'm building this, and
Yes.
now I realize it because it happens to me as well. It's like, yeah, I this is maybe 90% of my life, but I have a another life. I have a family, I have friends. And bringing you back to the exercise or the sport, you could even force it in the sense of, I take I take breaks. I make sure that I connect with family. I make sure I connect with the friends. I also make sure that to spend some time with non startup ecosystem. You know, it's good. It's good sometimes to meet friends who work 9 to 5 and hear their
Yes.
issues and problems and compare. Like, do you want this? Do you want to stay here? They have different. By the way, they have equal amount of problems and stresses. Maybe sometimes startup founders, they think that employees have great life. No, they don't. They also have their issues, but they might have financial commitment. Uh, they like what they're doing as a job. So it's good
Yeah.
to have this diversity in conversation.
Yes, this is such an interesting insight, such an interesting insight. And it reminded me, I'm a big supporter of there's no one size fits all solution, right? It has to be tailor made to be sustainable. If it not, it doesn't work. If it was okay, you would just read a book and fix your life. Like, oh yeah, I know everything I have to know, right? Yes, but then in reality, you have to face your life, your needs, your lifestyle. And it reminded me of when I was, a little baby therapist, a young therapist, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I was so fresh and energetic out of university. And I was like, yes, I'm going to go and help people and I'm going to fix their problem and their mental health. And they're going to do what I tell them to do. And they're going to feel amazing because life can be amazing. And then I will go into talking to people and they will say, oh, I can't sleep. And I will say, okay, let's do this next week. Did you do it? No, I couldn't. I didn't. And I was like, it was so frustrating because I was like, how can't you see that you're ruining your health? But then with experience, and this is the beauty of uh, for me, it's the beauty of being doing the same thing for as long as I have done it, and I hope to do it, for many years. Is that you gain a lot of experience, especially in my job, where you listen to people, right? You really listen to people, and I slowly realized that in order for us to change things that are not good for our health and that even if they're killing us, we need to find something that meets the need behind that behavior, right? So if I don't go to sleep until 3 a.m., it's not because, I'm stupid and, I'm going to ruin my health. There's something that is going to make me not fall asleep until 3 a.m. There's something. So you have to understand what the need is. Then you kind of satisfy that need. And that's, I think, that mix of black and white paint. You slowly give people a little bit more of what they really need, and they can slowly adjust, their lifestyle and what they do. Just a few months ago, I was talking to this entrepreneur who was like, I cannot sleep until 3 a.m. and then I wake up at 7 a.m. because I'm very disciplined and I have my business to run. I was like, okay, what do you do? Well, I can't stop playing video games at night, right? And it was, it's so bad. I want to be more disciplined. I really want to stop. And then we dig a little bit deeper. And it turned out that he was craving social connection so much because he was alone, because he was in a particular phase of the journey, and connecting online with his friends and playing was satisfying the need, right? So there was no amount of suggestions and research that I could give him that could get him to actually go to sleep earlier because he was needing connection. So we kind of found a little bit of, an adjustment, a workaround. So yeah, okay, how can you still get some connection and keep working without this taking you, off your work? I say, okay, I go on morning walk. Okay, let's invite someone on your morning walk. And surprise, surprise, it took him a week, maybe a week, 10 days. He went to sleep on a normal schedule.
Oh,
So
wow.
no willpower, no trying to push, like you were saying, trying to push a solution for someone who has a specific lifestyle, specific needs that need to be met, right? So, big believer in finding what works for you. There are a lot of tips out there, a lot of solutions, guru, therapists, people who tell you, oh, you need to do this routine and eat like that. And yes, those are pillars. But you gotta find what works for you. You really gotta find what works for you. I think that for me, at the point where I am right now, I think that to serve people as best as we can as helpers, because this is who we are helpers, we are helping, we can frame it like this, right? So finding out what do you really need. And I
But
think that you're doing a great job with
oh,
the community, like the community building. I think that the reason why your experiment is working so well with the community is because, like you said, other people like you, they can understand you, right? They understand that there are workarounds, there are either shortcuts that you can take in order to get where you want to go, and also the connection, which is so underrated when it comes to talking about burnout with founders and entrepreneurs. But we are social being, right? I always say that we need four things to survive: food, water, shelter, connection. uh, and being an entrepreneur and a founder, especially in the early stage, is pretty lonely. It's pretty lonely. So building a community that ensures that you can get some connection with people that understand you, great job.
very
Very
wise.
nice.
I No, and I
And
like what you said, and I like what you said about the pillars. I think there is also the importance that we should not dilute that there are pillars that you need. Those are the basic needs. You need them. It might be different from a person to a person, but still. And then there is a lot of available science. I echo what you said. Reading a book might not be uh, the solution, but maybe something in that book could help.
yes,
An experience that another person have tried and it worked. Like my personal journey with the sleep has been a consistent learning. I used to work. I don't play video games. I know for many video games are a good, I would call it like transition. But eventually, I realized that as a person, the way I built, if I finish this Zoom call and try to sleep, I will never be able to sleep.
mm-mm.
There is no way, and it's like some people can just do exactly this if you've watched it in a movie. Close the laptop and go turn the lights
Oh
off
my
and sleep.
god.
And it maybe it worked for a few. I found if that happens, if I go to sleep directly after a heavy exercise on my brain, believe it or not, I would be sleeping and dreaming about, like when I wake up in the morning, I feel that I didn't have enough sleep, or did we say that in the discussion, or am I dreamt about? It's like it's not it's not clear because my brain didn't have enough time to process all of those conversations. So I started to almost plan a transition in the sense of I'll say, okay, I want to sleep tonight at 10 p.m. For example, I should crawl into bed at about 8 or 9 and give
Mm.
myself some time where my phone ideally is far away. And then all of us, we go through a lot of theory about the phone. Do you keep it in a different room? Do you switch it off? Do you keep it next to you? And you get to learn the difference. And you know that back to the science, there's a lot of studies that says the light that comes of the blue light, I think they call it, that comes from the phone is not good for your eyes, it's not good for your brain. You go to the old school habit for those who read a physical, like a real book,
Yeah.
and for many, it helped them. Like when they hold the book, it's when they turn the pages. Um, what I found working for me, and I always share it, is like I watch silly stuff. Like I don't watch. I would spend some time watching in the beginning like podcasts or some like other startup stories, and that was even worse because then it gives me more ideas. And then I get,
Yes.
instead of sleeping, I was like, oh, that was interesting. So
Yes.
that so imagine, like I'm following, like I'm sitting in bed, I'm trying to zoom out of work, and I have YouTube and I'm watching a podcast, but that was not working for me. Eventually I found that I should switch even my mind off and find a TV series, whether it's an action, a romance, a drama, and then get into what's happening and the events. And imagine, even I can't go watch something serious like a long movie, or it has to be uh,
Yes.
yeah,
I call it
lo-fi.
flat EKG.
Yes, yeah,
Flat
exactly.
EKG entertainment. And I love it so much because I do it too. After years of experimenting with unwinding routine, warm shower, meditating, breathing, stretching, fitness stuff, nothing does it for me. And I'm lucky because my husband likes it too.
Good.
Like, what a few episodes of a silly, especially silly sitcom from the 90s, right? Like, I don't know about you, but for me, it was recently Malcolm in the Middle
Oh
or
wow.
Friends or stuff
Yeah,
like that. Like episodes that I already know sometimes, but they feel like they are soft to my mind, right? I think that when you think a lot during your day, like we are doing right now, your mind has a switch. It is switched on. And I think that there is a misunderstanding out there where we think that our mind can switch on and off on itself. Reality is that you have to do it, because if the mind has the chance, it loves to stay on. It loves to find problems. It loves to, it's like a dog on a bone, right? It likes to chew. It likes to chew. And if you give it materials, it will chew on that. As like, I'm gonna tell you this. Uh, for the nature of my job, when I see people in real life or on the screen, I observe and I ask myself questions. So when I watch serious stuff, I find myself sometimes drifting, like, why did he say that? Yeah, but maybe that's because in his childhood he had this, or yes, but maybe he didn't have a lot of sleep. And I would basically work and, diagnose the characters of the show instead of resting. So I really love this approach that you have, and I think that the most important thing you said is that you gotta observe yourself. You gotta try different things and see what works for you. And when you find it, you you focus on that, and you just keep doing it until up until it works. So, right. I give you my stamp of approval as a psychologist and a therapist on this nighttime routine.
and
But
and
I'm
and
curious
what
now, what about the morning routine? What do you do in the morning? Because out there is all the things, exercise, do this, that, blah, blah, blah. What do you do?
uh, so obviously it changed based
Mm-mm,
on the time. I don't. I'm not a routine person, so I don't have a
mm-mm,
routine. I do a lot of trials and errors. What I found satisfying, and not necessarily something I enjoy, but I spend a lot of my mornings um, to focus on my kids. So it's working the interesting here in the US. The kids, they don't go to school at the same time. So I have my middle son. He goes to the school early. So I wake him up. We have this conversation about breakfast every day. And then we used to walk to school. Now sometimes I drive him to school. And then by the time I get back, I wake up the second one, and he's more like a teenager right now. So we have less conversation as a teenager,
mm,
and then we go
yeah.
to school. And this, I wouldn't call it routine, but and then I one of my hobbies is cooking. So
Mm,
sometimes I will use them as or force the kids. Like some, they will complain to their mom and say, you know, dad forced us to try this. So I will, so partially by making a breakfast to the family, I'm also enjoying a hobby, and I feel this connection. Now, this routine, while whether it's working or not, I found its impact on my kids. So the fact that I wake them up, I take them to school. As I told you, it's less conversational, um, and I engage them in what I do. Like sometimes I share with them what's my plan for the day, what's their plan for the day. But it's also satisfying because I don't wake up and the first thing I do is work. One of the bad habits that I couldn't stop is I still, when I wake up, the first thing I do is I check my phone. And
Oh,
I hope, yeah, I hope that I will get to stop it. So now, at least what I was successful in, I will check up my phone, but not necessarily take an action.
nice.
Yeah,
Baby
because
steps.
and with the time zone differences, when we sleep in California, Dubai will be working. So when I wake up, I will have like tens or sometimes even hundreds of emails related to work. So I could consume myself if the first thing I do is open my laptop or my phone and start replying. So this is a new routine, I would call it, where I spend some quality time, or that quality or not, the definition is, but spend some time focusing on the family and the kid is good. Um, Whenever I have the leverage, as I told you, like I will try to make a meal and enjoy this cooking as a hobby. Uh, Exercising for me is doesn't come natural, unfortunately. I will have to force myself to do it. I'm not necessarily enjoying it, but I know the benefit of exercise for our body and our mind. It's amazing. It's it's even in my opinion, it's one of the stress relievers. If you go to like the last couple of days, I didn't go to the gym or I didn't do an exercise. Now in my head is telling me maybe I should not to exercise. It's more like to feel better about myself and my mind. Um, so in summary, I would say I don't have a routine. What I found useful is if I plan my day the night before. Like, I know today I have a couple of back to back calls, and then around midday or after midday, I will have a break. So it's
Hmm.
something almost like a reward for me that, okay, I'll have a busy day, but then I'll have a break. Um, One of the things that are important for me is getting into the weekend because in our line of business, especially working with founders, there's nothing called weekend.
Hmm.
So, so if you think about it, many of the founders, you tell them, it's the weekend. They go, yeah, well, nothing. Well, I'll work. Actually, some founders they even work more during the weekend if they have planning and preparation. So one of the routines I've introduced that uh, with Noor, with my wife, we were planning to go like at the beginning of the weekend and plan like a date night or like do an effort and say this is the weekend, we have to celebrate it, we have to we have a weekend. Or I would start reaching out to many of my friends who are the 9 to 5, the ones who look forward for the weekend, and you get this great energy that reminds me how, because individuals who are employed, they almost like they wait for the weekend the whole week, and you see how like for them the last day of the week is a celebration by itself, like it's the weekend, and many will switch off by 4 p.m. So even before the end of the day in the weekend, they will be wrapping off, closing their, switching off their work phone, keeping it, and being around them is a blessing because you see how they value the weekend, how they celebrate it, and how they plan for it, and you go, oh wow, I don't know why startup founders we don't do that. Like, I don't know, maybe it's as part of the job, um, uh, but it's one of the routines that I've adopted. That okay, I want to plan for the weekend, family time, some quality work time or thinking time, but also meet up with the friends who don't talk about um, the line of business. They talk about something. They talk about
Gardening.
absolutely. It's important. I have a community of friends that they have. They do simpler tasks. Um, for example, they sell used cars. And it's really nice hanging around individuals who uh, have, I would say, slightly different routine. Like you go, you do this, you switch off, uh,
Yes.
and 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 it's amazing. I also do spend time with friends who are founders, uh, and then we get into this mixed, I would say, entertainment, because we're supposed to be out, but actually all what we are doing is almost like a therapy session. It's we talk about funding, and we talk about this, and we talk about that, but at least like the atmosphere sometimes is different. You're not sitting in an office environment. You're sitting in a nice
Yes.
lounge, or you're having a walk, or having a drive, or going to do something different. Although the conversation is the same, but I'd say the environment around the conversation is different. And what I'm getting to know more and more is our brain is this super active machine that it processes everything. So while
Yes.
you and I are having this conversation, that we can consider it as we're chatting, we can consider it as therapy, our brain is capturing, just like what you said, the brain is capturing all of that. So now with Zoom, you don't get like the full experience. If you and I are sitting, we're having coffee, there will be even more for the brain to see what's surrounding us, what's the music playing, what's the smell of the coffee. And so um, I value, and I share that you might have the same conversation, the same exact maybe words by words, but if you change the environment, like instead of having this conversation on Zoom, and you do at least every couple of days, you get out of this Zoom setting. You know, I'm sitting with you wearing a t-shirt and my pajamas, so which is
Same.
great, right? I mean, it's, if you think about it, it's great. But then it comes a time when if you fully dress up, drive your car or work and go have a meeting in it, the experience is different. And it seems your brain understands that this is a different experience. And I think one of the great technology we use in this DNA is this: you and I are connecting, you're in a different country, we're at a different time zone. But I find it extremely, I would say, stressful that you sit in front of a computer this whole day and you talk to people virtually, um, and then end of the day you close your laptop, and as you said, you think that you can switch off. It's difficult, and especially with time zone differences, you might end up working with a client or having a conversation in an awkward time of the day, and you know your poor brain doesn't know
Yes.
when, because now, especially with the time zone, and the Pacific in California has a horrible time zone differences. We wake up when people are sleeping, we sleep when people are awake. So my brain, at least, I'm saying, and for many of the founders I work with, no longer can recognize that if it's night, then we sleep. No, actually, in many occasions when it's night, I was working on 2 nights ago, I was working on a heavy pricing call for a big proposal at 10 p.m. our time. So when I
Yeah.
finished this call, I couldn't sleep. I needed more silly TV shows.
Yes.
Because my brain was doing this pricing, and you send a
Yes.
proposal, with the time zone difference, I was waiting for the reply. So although it became like midnight, but I know at their time zone they are actually now comparing proposals, and I'm waiting to receive a message. And how would that work? So
Yeah.
with
Wow.
this environment, you can no longer decide that I'm going to work from when it's morning, when it's sunshine, and at the evening I will stop working. No, unfortunately, I think this is a privilege that very few of us have or will have even in the future, and we'll have to get to um, used to work in like awkward hours, and introduce our own routines. Uh, One of the new things I'm trying, and you might know more about, but working, as they call them, like sprints. So I call it like deep work. So I will plan in my calendar that for some time, no phone, I have this important thing to do and I need 20 to 25 minutes planned in my calendar. If I'm working from home, I'll share with the family that I have this important task to do and I need this continuous 25 minutes because
Yes.
by the time your brain reaches to the focus level of making decisions on this important, the last thing I want is getting an Instagram message or a phone call or
Yeah.
something. So,
Yeah.
and I think this is extremely important. If you realize that, back to one of the early points of our conversation, that you have to make decisions as a family
Yes.
always. And sometimes, why don't you respect this decision you are making and take some time? One of the experts have taught me and eventually shared it with our cohort that you have to also identify what is the best or one of the best ways for you to take a decision. Uh, for some, it's when you're walking. Walking is a great tool to make a decision because you walk, you, maybe you leave the phone or there is nobody around you, and you take a walk and think about this decision, and it's amazing. Um,
Yes.
for many, including myself, I found shower is the great. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, and I found for others, not for me, but for others, is going to the gym. It's especially for startup founders. For many, this is almost their, I call it like their safe zone. They go to the gym, they think the day, especially on a treadmill or with weight, and it works.
Yes. Yes.
But it's the same concept. You are changing the environment and going with a thought and listening to to the voices in your head and analyzing rather than you are rushed to make a decision. And unfortunately, again, I'm saying unfortunately, it's a
Yes.
concept we
Yes.
cannot change. Startup founders, including myself, we think that a lot in what we do is about taking quick decisions on the go. And I had experience firsthand that many of those decisions that I've taken on the go, whether I was burned
Have
out or
led.
about to burn out, oh, I paid for it
Yes.
in blood and tears and sweat. Like I wished if I've taken 5 minutes or 10 minutes just to make this, just
Yes.
to think this decision. And back to what I like about your study and the area you do, there are a lot of frameworks that you can use, like simpler frameworks. How do you assess an idea? How do you make sure that you are in the right mindset? What tricks you can do to get into the right mindset? And surprisingly, where I come from, it's like we 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 link meditation and yoga into almost like a religious practice. It's not. It doesn't have to. It's one of the ways that takes you out of the busy routine and find your, I'd say, silent moment. Find that moment. So um, I believe in sharing or reading or working with experts and therapists because at least they will tell you what how many models you have and what
Yes.
works for people. And then it's up to you, as you said, it's not one size fits all. You'll have to
Yes.
find
What works
what
for
works
you?
for you. And
Yes.
Danny, I found that what works for me today could very much in 6 months or 1 year doesn't work anymore. Like this is, I don't know if it's personal, I don't know if it happens with other people, but sometimes getting into a routine that worked excellent in a certain time zone and a time frame in my life, and then I don't know what happens, like after a year or two it doesn't work anymore, so I have to go find another routine.
Yes. Yes. I find this point that you're bringing up very interesting because um, I reflected a lot on the idea that it's not about, yes, you want to master the fundamentals, right? The pillars of health. You want to master them. But the best thing you can do for yourself is to learn how to adapt to what happens in your life. It's not what happens, it's how you react to what happens, right? So if you can work on shaping the way you respond to whatever situation you're in or whatever phase of your life you are, then you have that muscle very trained to respond to a period where maybe you travel more, or a period where you have to stay up late more, because it's good to have a routine that works, but life is not the same every day. Things happen. And so a big thing that I really believe in is that I try to do my best 80% of the time to have those pillars in place, to have, good food, perfect sleep, movement, and everything. But I always have that 20% of wiggle room to adapt to whatever is happening in my life. Like, for example, you talked about this weird sleep schedule that you have because of the difference in time zone. I find that in those situations, you have to just do the best you can with what you have on your hands. So for me, since I encountered this issue in my therapy session a lot, talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, I found that the things that work the most when your sleep is a little bit disrupted is to make sure that you take micro rests during the day, which are, really good micro rests, not micro rest scrolling or micro rest walking around, micro rest Navy SEAL style, basically. So you lay around on the floor with your knees 90-degree on a chair, you close your eyes, possibly you have some a headphone or something for your ears, and you just lay there for 3 to 5 minutes. And this does wonder to your brain, because the overwhelming part of not being able to keep up with your sleep schedule, with your sleep hours, is that the brain gets clogged. Too many words, like you said before. After this conversation, my brains will be full of words, and if I don't allow it to decompress for a moment, I'm going to be in trouble, and tomorrow I'm not going to be sparkly. I'm going to have brain fog. So this to say that the best thing I think that one of the best thing we can do is to train ourselves to respond to the different situations we find ourselves in life, instead of getting fixated on that workout routine, that food that works, etc., because that is gonna make you rigid. And when you're rigid, you break. Instead, you want to be flexible. And I think that what you do, the way you are approach this balance, this work-life balance, is the right way. Finding out what works for you, moment to moment. Maybe in 6 months, it's going to be a complete different routine, but you will know because you observe yourself and you test different things.
Very deep. I like that. And to be honest, one of the many beautiful things you've said, but my brain catches like I'm not familiar with this Navy SEAL breaks, which it's something I'm going to read about. But it seems a practice that works, and you've practiced it and you know about it.
Yeah,
and
sensory
I will
deprivation. Yes, try
sensory
it.
deprivation.
I tried it with a client of mine who has a very active mind. He has some ADHD traits, and so his mind is constantly active. And this was it was creating a lot of overwhelm, because he has to run his business, he has to keep up with personal life, and you will get, when you get paralyzed because it feels like a mountain and you don't know where to start, and it will be like that. But you cannot do that when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a founder. And so I said, you know what? Find a quiet place. And he found a closet, which works. closet. He put an eye mask on. I put some earplug on, and he just stayed there. He didn't even lie on his back. He just stayed there, seated for 3 minutes, sometimes five, and he will say, I never experienced something like that. Because if you think about it, in today's world, there is always some stimulation going around, right? I live in front of the sea, and sometimes when the doors are open, even the sound of the sea, it overstimulates me, and I don't recognize it until I put my headphone on, and I'm like, so that was it. So these little sensory deprivation breaks, they're really beneficial for our mind and our brain. And what I just told you, they are a mix of an AVCL technique, which is the one to lay on your back and put your knees on 90 degree, and an experience I've done with, I don't know if you're familiar with that, the flotation tanks. Have you ever heard about them? There are these tanks, right? Shaped like an egg. And there is the water, which is a very, very high percentage of a specific salt in it. So you kind of float right there. And the temperature is exactly the same as your skin, your body. So you don't feel the difference. It's completely dark. There's no sound. So your brain is completely deprived of sensory stimuli. And you stay there 45 minutes maybe, and the experience after, besides all the relaxation and the wellness that you experience, is that your brain had a break. It had a break. So I mixed those two, and the sensorial deprivation micro rest came out, and it works pretty well. So let me know if you try them, because I'm curious. Especially with a lifestyle like yours.
I will definitely. I've also shout out to you and to all the therapists and people work in healthcare and mental health. I find from the experience we are running right now, and from talking to many of classmates, that when you work, when you spend your hours in the day trying to solve people problems, um, it has even, I'd say, heavier weight on those individuals. So remember when we talked about the one size fits all, and with all respect to individuals doing so many great things for us or for the system, but the ones like the therapists, the ones who work in mental health, the ones who works with lifestyle coaching or work life, with what they do, and it depends on their personality, but many would carry this with them. And then what, let's say, works for an individual who is building a SaaS technology for restaurants, and you can tell them that, okay, take a micro break or watch Netflix, and it works. You find it doesn't work for others who get deeply into let's say a third person. And I didn't realize that, but I was working with another founder, and we started getting into conversation, and then I relate to it right now, because sometimes, like, I'll be with my wife or chatting, and I just, like, let's say, finish a conversation with a founder, and I almost like want to share, because, like, the story is so much, and some of it is like personal details, and you go, can I share? But maybe I can't share because it's my work. So I remember, and I spoke with that person who is also into mental health, and he said, oh yeah, now my problem is, I talk to people who have problems, and then I carry all of that, and my, like, let's call it zone out routine, his zone out routine is
Yeah.
is I mean, heavier than mine, because Now you need to switch off after all of those intense conversation.
Yes,
and
yes,
and when I compare it with somebody building a technology where their problem is with the coders and the technology, and it's big problems, but almost it's similar problems. But
it is.
individuals or therapists who have, different conversations, family, with kids, with work, and your day is full of new challenges and new problems. So having a routine to switch off, most probably, in my opinion, will be way more difficult. And I think that's the beauty is, imagine if you take what works for this intense job, and maybe apply it or share it with individuals who have almost like a regular challenges on every day. It would definitely help them. Um, and I think
Yes.
it's this once you identify that you don't want to burn out, and what's your threshold, we do one of two things, at least in a startup. Either we help you improve the threshold, which I hate, but some people, they say, you know what, I signed up for this. I know it will be stressful. I'm going to raise around. I'm going to sell my company. I'm going to acquire this business. And I know this will be really bad. So then the goal becomes, how could we all, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a financial planner, how could we all help that individual by increasing this threshold so they can go through this horrible time of their life? Um, and I like it when you're working with a person that identify that I'm going to go through a very difficult experience. Um, and then you have the ones who don't realize it, like they think this is everyday routine.
Mm.
uh, and then surprisingly, now linking your mind with your body, uh, the body will start to slow them down. Like they will get sick, they will get like a
Yes.
skin rash, they will get funny things. And and then they realize that, oh, now I remember, you all told me that this is going to be very stressful, and I thought that I have the stamina, I can, but now, my body is telling me no, I can't. um,
Yes.
and this is an indication, like, okay, some of us, we collapse mentally, like the burnout is in your head. But I find it with others, you start to get like neck pain, or
Oof.
even it happens with me, like I would get like my back stiff. And then I'll ask
Yes.
my wife, like, did you have problems? Is the bed, do we have a problem in the bed? Do we need to change the bed? Or I'll say, maybe I sat in this chair for the whole day. And then I realize, no, it's actually, this is how my maybe body's telling me that this is very stressful, what you're going through. You're thinking a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And this is stiffness is because you need one of those tricks you just shared with me. It's, you need to take a
Yes.
break. You need to stop your brain from all those stimuli. You need to take a walk. You need to, like you, I love the sea and the waves and the ocean. Maybe you need to just switch and go.
Yes.
And it seems that, you know the way we are created is, you have all of those indications that this is going to be bad. You need to do something about it. And the ones who continue to drive full speed are the ones that you can tell them that, you know what.
Will
and
crash. They
and
will
and and, it,
crash.
and, it, and it's funny, I talked to some of the younger entrepreneurs, said, you know what, you're going to burn out. And I love it. And I'll be very, very like quiet.
Yeah.
You're going to, I want you to know that we're here by your side. And they said, what do you mean? I've done this before. This will not happen to me. I'm like built of steel. And I said, oh, no, no, just hear me out. It's okay. I hope you will not
Yes.
burn out. But you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're not spending enough time out of the work, you don't have a hobby. um, you have all those aches in your body that in your age is not natural. I mean, you should not have all those pains. You are stressed and you need to take a break. You need to do something. And they say, no, I don't. And so I consistently tell them, like, many, they don't like the approach. So I tell them, you're going to burn. And when you burn out, let's do, Let's do one, two,
Let's
three.
talk about it.
Exactly. Like when you burn, I want you to know that you could say you're not feeling good, and then there are all of those tricks that you can try. Whether you take a break, whether you take a walk, whether you spend time with friends, whether you think about a hobby. Uh, but it's interesting uh, how many of us, they don't realize that they could burn out. They think it's vulnerability. They think that this is linked to weakness. Um, they don't want to talk about it, and and I and I really really hope that we find individuals who are built in a different way and they never burn out. But I think it's a myth. This we all go through it. The more
Yes.
you identify it, and I'd say surround yourself with individuals, no judgment, that can help you, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a friend. I find
Community.
whether it's a community, but I find nowadays um, having access to professionals maybe is equally or even sometimes more important, because friends, and where I come from in our culture, and some places in Europe, maybe not all over the place, are almost like your therapist. You can sit with them and you can tell them. But what I consistently found that those friends are not trained to be your therapist. Like when you tell me about, if we are in a coffee shop and you start, venting, I might give you the wrong advice because I'm not a therapist myself. I can tell you, it's like, oh, you have a problem with your partner, and say, oh, leave her. I say, I'm not trained to give advice in such important life decisions. This is why you need to go to someone who is trained, who knows that they can listen sometimes, and other times they might maybe direct you. Uh, and there's the no judgment part is extremely important, because I see, especially few, because I'm not trained, but some of the conversations founders have about the relationship with the family or the partner, because I've been through it personally, I find that it's one sided. Like you'll say, oh, my family is not supporting me. Oh, we think about it. What do you expect the family to do? You work 18, 19 hours a day. What would they do for you? I think
Yes.
the biggest support they give you is like they leave you to do it. They don't put the pressure. But sometimes the family, when they ask you to join family events or spend time with them, because they need that. It's not like they don't understand how important is your work and you are changing their, um, either because they need you or sometimes they care about you and they are telling you to step out of work because they see you working so much, and they tell you, it's like, let's have a meal, let's do this, let's go out. Um, but I find it increasingly of interest to me to see like many founders, they think that they don't understand them, they don't give them enough support. And I think to myself, because I'm not trained therapist, when I have this conversation, it's like, how do I deliver this message? Like in the sense of they are not trained to support you. They are not a startup incubator. They are not an
No.
accelerator program.
You're right. You're right. Well, the talking about, I think it's a great step forward. You're right. Um, there's still there's a sense, almost a sense of shame when it comes to talking about burnout, stress, and mental health. And I think it's related to the thing that we were talking in the beginning, the glossy idea of being an entrepreneur. I think it's that, like, it's it feels bad if someone calls you and say, "Oh yeah, congratulations! How's it going with your venture?" And you say, "You know what? It's going really bad. I'm exhausted. I can't." It feels bad. You are almost pushed to say, "Yeah, everything is great." There is this idea of being positive and fake it until you make it, and and all these things, which, yeah, of course, positive mental attitude helps, but part of a positive mental attitude is also to be really honest with yourself, and again to realize that uh, the higher good is that you have to find ways to be healthy in the mind and the body so that you can take good decisions for yourself, for for your business, for your family. If you reduce it to it, if you are able to bring the attention back from founders, entrepreneurs being almost, wondering in their mind on what's going to happen, and how what would they think about me, to yes, my job, my biggest goal, my main goal is to be in a good place mentally and physically. If you do that, you're able to do everything else. As I always say, you have one body and one mind, and you have to live with those up until you die. So you better make friends with them and treat them well, because if not, then you are stuck with a crappy body and a mind that won't shut off. So I think that the what you are doing, what we are doing, talking about it, and especially younger startup founder, bringing this awareness. Like there is also this part of the job, right? I see this. I see taking care of yourself as part of a job, of the job of a founder, just because it serves you. So maybe if we are able to talk about this in this framework as part of the job, maybe we can lower a little this taboo and this shame around, needing some help with our mental health.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, Saif, I will stay and talk for, if it was up to me, I would talk for a few hours more, but we are already, I think, an hour
You're
and a
great in
half.
what you're doing. I'm very happy we're connected. I'm happy with the conversation. I
Me
hope we'll
too.
get also part of this conversation shared, and it might help someone who's listening or watching
Yes.
reflect and say, yeah, I'm going through the same.
Yes, that's the idea. And last thing, if someone wants to find you and startup, where will they find you? Is there a website on LinkedIn? Where?
Yes. So um, we have a website, and we'll share the website. It's startupinsurance.com. Um, and I'm using Instagram as one of the ways to communicate. So we're also on Instagram, and then
What's your
my
handle on
LinkedIn.
Instagram?
It's my it's Saif Aljaibeji, one word. So my first and second name is one word at
Okay.
Instagram, and then on LinkedIn, say I'm always open. Before I get into startup as a concept, it was more for me. I used to spend, or I call it, donate an hour a week to meet with a young, I wouldn't call them not necessarily like a younger founder, 'cause some of them are older in age, but like a newer founder who they have an idea, they wanted just to connect. And then I found that, well, I thought initially I'm donating an hour. I found that that hour was more for me than for the other person, because you get to meet a new individual, you built a great connection, and then you have conversations about whether it's life or work or a new venture or a new idea, um, to a level that I started doing 2 hours a week. And through LinkedIn, people would reach out and say, I want to talk to you. And then either we'll meet in person or do a call. And I was trying to do more of an in person because of the experience I told you about. Like the Zoom call um, wasn't, at least for me, and I would think for the other individual for it's not a great experience because it becomes like another call. But like, let's take time off and go sit in a nice coffee shop and have conversation. And I found it very rewarding. So when this new venture have translated into something similar, I want to say, um, for many who reached out, they're helping me. Not it's a two-way street. I'm also benefiting, whether by trying what works and what doesn't, but by hearing their stories, and thank them for opening up, because it takes courage. I know I had recently a conversation with some individuals who've seen that they've been thinking about reaching out all this time. Like they would see the posts on LinkedIn, they would see like some of the reels on social media, and it takes them time to reach out, because it's really unfortunate that this is a myth. This is something created by Hollywood and Netflix. It doesn't have to be glossy all the time. And there is also this important concept of no judgment. You don't have to talk about it. Whether you go to a therapist. If you don't want to talk, don't talk about it. Just like if you remember 10, 20 years ago, nobody would go to a therapist because they
Yeah.
think it's bad.
Yeah.
And now if you go, you don't have to promote it and post it on your social media that I'm going to see my therapist. You don't have to, but it's a safe place. It's a place that you can go and talk. There's no judgment. Um, you don't have to promote it or over promote it. And people could benefit from different models of help, whether it's energy, whether it's spiritual, whether it's gym and physical wellness, whether it's mental. Um, but what's important, whether it's you talk to me or they'll talk to you, is there are those pillars you call them or frameworks that are available that you can read about them, that you can watch videos about them. And then the idea is you continue to try until you find what works. And sharing from my personal experience, what might work for you today could change. So it's not like the whole concept is wrong, because for some people, they would go to the gym and it helps them. And then the moment gym becomes no longer their safe haven, or they don't want to do anything else. And I think, I hope you agree with me. I think that's wrong. Maybe gym is no longer, because gym became now a regular routine. So you should find a new hobby, or go surf or learn or do music. But it has to be always this value of your time out of the working hours. And surprisingly, Danny, what works for me, or and many of my I wouldn't even call them clients, but more like our network or community. Um, it helps with work. This is the most important message, that if you have a clearer head, a better body, if you sleep well, if you are eating well, you know what? All of this is not a waste of time and money. It could actually fuel the
Yes.
mission you have, the journey you're doing. It's not a divert. It's equally important, because if you want to continue to be innovative and creative, it's not by spending 19 or 20 hours of your time on the same idea and on the same. It's taking this mental breaks or times off, changing, I'd say, the air, the environment, traveling is
Yes.
extremely helpful. One of my best ideas came. I, I I bet none of us have a great idea doing the exact routine thing you do every day. That,
Exactly.
that's why people don't think in the office. They think when they are out of the office. They think when they are having a walk, or walking their dog, or having a
Yes.
conversation with a friend, or watching a podcast. So the more you do the non-routine exercises, it's actually helps you in build a better
Yes.
product.
Yes, wow, this is music to my ears, music to my ears, really. The idea, this concept of do it for a clear mind, do it so that your mind is crystal clear. I remember, and then I'll let you go in the I think it was a year ago, where I was struggling to adapt to this new venture because it's new for me. I'm a new, I don't even like the label, but I'm a new solopreneur. So I was struggling with this, the change in the workflow, right? Working on the business and in the business as a therapist, it was difficult. And I remember being very stressed out during the week, and I walk with my husband, he's my partner, and I was like, okay, now we gotta brainstorm on this. And my mind was like, meh, flat, nothing, no ideas. And then the weekend would come. I'm very strict on by my weekend, so my weekend needs to be unwinding and happy. And I would have the best ideas of my life, and they will just go away. And I remember complaining to him, like, but why? Why this happens to me? And he said, you know what? Instead of complaining about the why, let's take out your phone, record yourself when you're speaking to me, and then we got it. And I solved
Wow.
this way. Yes, I solved it like this because you're absolutely right. We have our best ideas basically when we are okay, when we are in a state where our nervous system feels safe, like under the shower or walking or having fun. And in order for us to be creative, we need to feel good. A nervous mind, a tense nervous system, it doesn't create good stuff. It just recycles the old stuff, the old narrative that are in your subconscious. It doesn't create. Creation comes from you being feeling okay, feeling good. So I really like this. I really like this idea.
Thank you. Thank
Great,
you for sharing.
great.
I hope, are we going to make some of this content available for others to watch?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're gonna edit this and we're gonna cut out little clips, you know. I'm gonna send them to you so you can do whatever you want. I'm gonna
Yeah,
send you the full interview also so you can share it and do whatever
yeah,
you
with your
want with it.
permission, yes, I would love to also.
Absolutely.
I think there are
Um,
great advices we can both share, and then we'll
yes.
connect them to your website and to your LinkedIn page. I think the fact that you work with entrepreneurs is amazing. It's a small industry or a small market, and for many professionals, it might not be rewarding financially enough. You're dealing with individuals that have different set of problem, but many will have also, um, I'd say, less interest in paying for services. But when you find an expert like yourself dedicated and you work a lot with founders, it saves a lot of time and effort because you immediately can relate to the founder's solo journey and being lonely and
Yes.
all the pressure that comes with it. I appreciate what you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate what you do and what you're doing with your team and your community. Keep going. And you have all the support from my part. So keep going. And thank you so much for all the wisdom that you donated today and all the beautiful things you shared. I'm going to rewatch the interview and soak them all in because they were really great. And I think we will say goodbye and we'll see each other on LinkedIn. We'll stay in touch.
Yes, I'd
All
love to.
right. Thank you, Saif. Thank you for your time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.